Welcome back to the women's final at the Abu Dhabi Longboard Classic presented by Modon. A pleasure to have your company. Thanks for tuning in. It's an all-French affair with Zoe Grospiron surfing against Lemoigne.
Meanwhile, our women's final on the way with Alice Lemoigne.
Beautiful 10 to get things started, representing Reunion Island under the French flag. Surf Abu Dhabi also not without its French-speaking employees. A lot of support here for Alice as she styles her way through this wave.
Nice down carve there for Alice. It's all French final for the women, Matt.
Yep. A very unique scenario here, and the last time we saw a French flag take a victory in the WLT, well, the last final was last year in the Bells Beach event, and she kicks out of that one. It's a great starting wave.
To get an opportunity to compare now this 8.67 from Elise to that wave from Zoe. Is it going to come out higher? Is it going to come out lower? Carla, the scores come in at a 7.67 for Zoe, so it's just a bit under. What do you think separated these two rides?
Well, you could see right off the bat, Elise had two 10s, and they weren't really quick 10s. They were decent 10s in there, and so I think that really is just what separated the difference between the scores. She got a little bit more done in the wave. Again, this is that replay of Elise's first right, and very dynamic, a lot of work done there. She feels good about it. Plenty of work done for Zoe. Zoe had the high score judged at an 8.2.
Combined live action, Elise Lemoigne straight back up to the tip, holds the 5, holds the 10. Doesn't quite get the full 10. It was just, again, that tight 5 that we talked about, Carla. So talk about the technique of the nose riding we're seeing on takeoff from the Luffy team rider. I
mean, definitely she's getting in that critical part of the pocket, but not quite getting the 10, but working herself in that middle section so that she can get back into this another open nose ride section.
Attacks this section through the last part here. More cross steps back up to the tip. Rolls a 5. Gets nice and tight there on the nose ride. Staying in trim on that nose ride. Walking back to the tail. And then with that wider stance, just sweeping into a top turn to that last part of the wave. And what a strong start for Alice Lemoigne with an 8.67 and another score to drop, Carla.
Yeah, I think she's going to drop a fairly large score for that left. She had a lot of energy and excitement through it. You had that opening nose ride again. We talked about the bit maybe of a missed 10, but she did get a nice tight 5.
Who will compete at Surf City El Salvador as we get to see the replay. Talk about the criticalness. Was that a full 10?
That might have been a 10. There was so much splash on the nose that it was a bit hard to tell if those toes were quite over the nose or not, but you see how she just gets crouched low, kind of holds that center of gravity of lower so she can get through that tricky section, and then runs up to the nose again with 2 steps. 2 steps forward, 2 steps back, then she gets 4 steps fully back. That way she can get to the tail and redirect it back into the curl to set up for that nose ride once again.
And this was the attacking approach we saw from Elise that booked herself a spot in the final, beating Kaleopaha from Hawaii in that second semi-final, and that was a really great exchange, Carla.
It was a fabulous heat. Beautiful surfing came from Khalees, and Elise ended up taking the win here. Now she is in the final. Tricky there, the foot comes up to a 10, but it's on the side of the rail, so I would say it was a tight 5.
Steven Sawyer, our 2018 World Longboard Champion, booked himself a spot to go for a second world title as we see Zoe arching, locked in a really long nose ride on that last section there, and she just comes into a sweeping turn as we can see her mum watching as well from the sidelines, cheering her on, and she walks back up to the nose, locks on that 5. Really smooth arm up style, crisply walking out, widening the stance into another sweeping cutback, and again a great start from Zoe. We've seen this velvet smooth surfing from her all event, and her mum's happy.
Yeah, she's super velvety, and similar maneuvers done on the wave, but entirely different approaches and different ways of dancing on that wave, if you will.
8.3 for her left. Now let's think about that 8.67 that was Elise's first ride compared to this replay for Zoe.
Well, she opens it up right away with a nice long nose ride, holds it still. You can see a little bit of texture on the water now on this right. She sets it up again for another nose ride, and then just kind of says, hey Alice, you can soul arch, so can I.
Yeah, absolutely. Straight into the rail work as well. So a lot of variety Carla demonstrated.
Yeah, a lot of variety. She's showing that she can get, tick off all the boxes, gets plenty of nose and tip time. She's going to try to get that little 10. You can tell she was trying to kind of reach for it and decided, now I'll play it safe. Brings it back around for that final chef's kiss at the end of the wave. And here we just slow it down and see that really lovely nose ride where she throws some body English into it.
And surfing under the floodlights, how do you think that affects the line and the positioning of the surfers?
Well, I haven't had a chance to do it myself, but I think it's a tremendous element that changes the dynamic of the wave. It's hard to say probably how they read the lip and see the bottom, but these girls are handling it wonderfully.
The 690-meter long basin, 1 minute long ride, the point break setting, perfect for stylish longboarding, Carla.
It's a super perfect venue here to showcase the professional longboard tour. And here we have Zoe up on her left.
Straight up to the nose, holds a 5, gets nice and tight on the 5, could have been a 10, walks back out of that critical nose ride, and then quite high up on the board for that trim speed, now dropping down low into the wave and just using that clutch control to move that front foot forward and stretching out for a second nose ride as things get sparkly with the floodlights here as she cleanly comes off the rail from the back of the board, cross-stepping forward to a high line and then almost locks a 5, touches it, but then does lock a 5 on that section as things get really quick here, and she just keeps her composure to walk back to the tail, Carla, and just touch the foam at the end and get a round of applause from everyone watching.
Yeah, I mean, Zoe's so excited and happy probably to be here in the final. If I'm not mistaken, it's probably one of her career highlights.
At a 7.83 for Alice's opening left-hander, but this was a great critical nose ride on takeoff, Carla.
Yeah, and she does look like she does get the 10 there. It's a little tight, might be a tight 5. Sometimes it's a little hard to see, but you can see how she whips into this section here, gives a little bit of that engagement of the front foot. I kind of like her on the backside. I feel like there's a little bit more energy that comes from her.
A bit more unpredictability as well, that innovative line which just keeps us on the edge of our seats.
Yeah, I feel like on her rights we kind of can predict what she's doing, but on the left we can't, and I like that. I want to be surprised. I want to be shocked. I want to get excited in my seat.
Things got lively through the last section, but the great control in that opening nose ride, but then towards the end of the wave, not quite locking a long time on those touches of the nose, but reacting quickly with the footwork.
Yeah, she definitely had amazing footwork there. Like you said, there was a couple moments there that approached these final 2 waves, knowing that she's already in the lead, knowing that Zoe needs a fairly decent score. She's scored great here with a 7.67 and a 7.8, but here we go. Elise on her second right.
Significant results here will improve the seeding for the surfers going into El Salvador, and a 5 into a 10 into another 10, holding that nose ride, both arms up there, a third critical nose ride, the big soul arch, the trademark maneuver, climbing and dropping from the middle of the board, walking back up. Carla, what do you think of this one?
I like the nose ride so far. I like this dial here. She's holding him long and tight, using some rail work. She's going to bring it back and around.
Swoops it onto this last section here, Carla, back up to the tip, holds the 5, gets another touch of the more critical nose ride into the 10 and then the stretch 5, and holds it all the way into another rail work through the inside, and she's got an 8.67 in the can already, but that was pretty good. Her partner Luca thinks it's good as well.
You get the feeling that Elise feels like she's in a dream, that it's not quite real, or don't pinch me rather.
And you use the word dream, I mean the dreamy conditions, let's talk about the setting. It is spectacular, and to be able to surf under the spotlight like this.
Yeah, and you can see how she's lit up here on this replay here. She does nail a 10, goes for another 10, a little splashy there, a bit of splash, but really maximizing her nose ride because she really wants to try to set herself apart.
Pushing it, taking risk.
Yeah, she wants to take the risk. She knows this is her last chance on this right, so she's going to give it all she got. She's come in with an 8.67 already, so she really kind of doesn't have anything to lose.
And I like that approach, the fact that she's really trying to better it, Carla.
Yeah, and that's what she should be doing. Because she knows that her friend Zoe, she's been traveling, they've been training together, and Zoe has opened up with a 7.67 and a 7.8, so clearly the possibility is there for her to get more excellent scores.
And what's so interesting, Carla, is both of these women are sitting at the bottom of the list of those 7th and 8th seeds going into El Salvador, so a big win here is really going to change their seeding, as we can see that really amazing soul arch.
Yeah, well, I think in general, both Zoe and Elise are just super happy to be here. They're competing against each other. They're moving on to El Salvador. Yeah, and to note to some of Stevie's points, getting to ride it more and more, you're able to kind of plan your plan out better.
Here it is. She's up and riding a high line. 2 steps forward, 4 cross steps into a tight 5. Holds that tight 5. Walks out of that opening nose ride into a second nose ride. Opting to take a high line, widening her stance. Getting nice and low here, attacking this section, shuffling forward and then cross-stepping into a roll of another nose ride, all in the same trim line, but it was critical. She takes a fall, so she will carry that 7.83 as her highest scoring left-hander, meaning Zoe will be chasing a 9.46.
That's a giant score, but you know, she's got the right and the left to build upon.
Then was that risk as well, that degree of difficulty, going for it, knowing she had a big score to better, but what went wrong on this walkout?
Well, here she walked down and then she was already just out of control. She had no grip on the rail and the tail just slid out and she wasn't able to hold.
0 on the clock there, so that means that the hydrofoil will be setting in motion, and there you can just see it creating that solitary wave, this unique system here at Surf Abu Dhabi, as Zoe Grospiron sets up on the point break setting with a nice crisp footwork up to the tip, holds it tight, long 5, stays on that 5, keeps that knee pointing forward in a sole arch, a little bit of hip movement, bringing that back for tighter on that critical opening nose ride, and then cross-stepping back to the tail, readjusting her line, climbing and cross-stepping into another critical sole arch, and she's got that back arm up as she walks into a swooping turn, and her rail work, Carla, has been on point for the last 3 days. It's been one of the hallmarks, the smooth transitions between those sole arch hang 5s.
Yeah, I just really like the way she puts things together. I like her form, her dance form, her style, and like that velvety, smooth approach that she takes to wave riding.
And you use that word form. Where does function come into it with longboarding? What's the combination of doing those functional maneuvers with that class and form that you talk about?
Looks so easy as she transitions her weight from tail to nose.
Classic sole arches on takeoff again, like we have seen, but then mixing it later in that ride with the rail work.
Yeah, and I just love how still she is on the upper body, how there's no wild hands. You can tell she just feels in control. She's balanced. And she's in control here, and she just shows us her feminine flair.
And again, off that bottom turn, a favorite element of her style for me is the way she just touches that wave face as she bottom turns back into the sections.
Yeah, she really embodies kind of that combination of power and beauty, because she's so smooth within her maneuvering.
So it will be one more wave to catch for Zoe. She's going to drop a score. She's chasing a 9.46 on this single wave alone to take the win, but she does have the opportunity.
Now she needs at least an 8.77 on the left to take the win here at the Abu Dhabi Longboard Classic.
And here it is, the last wave of the event, finals day, day 3, the women's final, the last left-hander for Zoe Grospiron from France, locks a 5, holds a tight 5, stays really true to that critical tight 5, but high degree of difficulty there. She pedals back. She's going to be right behind the section, but she manages to pull in. Elise Lemoigne from France, who is going to be our champion for the women at the Abu Dhabi Longboard Classic, and Zoe Grospiron will take second. They're both great friends, and what a great final that was, Carla.